And now it's time to get real about the metaverse. This is all about building the metaverse, challenges, benefits. What are the impacts on real life industries? I'd like to introduce the session lead who will introduce all the panelists, Usher Frank. He's the founder and CEO of Metaverse Architects. On the front line, over to you, Usher. Take it away.
This is really exciting. We have so many cool people here today. You know, we have Mr. Metaverse, we have Andrew from Digby, we have Dennis, who is an amazing philosopher, we have Huma, who's an insane thinker, and I love doing this podcast with her. It's been like a ride for me and her for about a year. We've been running together, so this is beautiful. And our theme today is how the metaverse will impact the real life industries. You know, so this recording of this episode of the podcast is related to the FinTech conference ran and hosted by Craig Asano. And it's a great, it's a great honor to run this under a different conference. Okay, Nav and everybody else, let's start with a short introduction. What do you think? Do you wanna start? Do you wanna take it off? Sure. Tell about yourself.
All right.
Who are you,
Sounds
Mr.
good. Thank you so much for introducing me, Usher, and hello everyone. My name is Nav, aka Mr. Metaverse. I'm the founder and creator of Charmy Worlds, which is a no-code metaverse galaxy solution. Literally, you just throw our technology onto any web server, and a full galaxy appears with little to no programming. We're here to really disrupt the market to make it easy to get into the metaverse. And as we continue to grow, we're actually adding even more advancements based on what we're hearing from our users and our customers, including the latest of AI, such as ChatGPT, and currently working with ChatGPT 4 and the latest stuff. So it's really exciting times ahead, and we're looking forward to what the metaverse brings to the space.
Awesome, fantastic. Huma, would you like to jump in?
Sure. Thank you, Usher. Lovely to be here. So my name is Huma Aslam. I am originally born and raised in Toronto, and I am a fashion designer. And I went to Los Angeles to go to design school. Ended up working there for many years, and then fashion's taken me all over the world. And I worked for some iconic brands like Hugo Boss, Vivienne Westwood, Armani. And I decided pre-pandemic to come back to Toronto, and I have a consulting agency where I help brands take their business to the next level. And at that time, I decided I had interest in smart clothing, so I started to delve into that. And that is what led me to doing a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship. And so I'm in a very interesting position now, having had a rich career in actual fashion design, traditional cut and sew, and now being well versed in digital design and all that the Web3 has to offer. So I'm excited to now help brands navigate their way into the Web3 space. So thank you for having me.
All right, beautiful. Thank you, Huma. And Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lane. I'm one of the co-founders of a Toronto-based but somewhat locationless company called Digby. So as part of the theme today, we work specifically with an industry. We work specifically in the architecture and design industry, which is a vertical that we thought was a really exciting one to be a part of with everything coming in the metaverse space. So we're part tech company and part consultancy, and our tech side is more focused on blockchain and AI side. From a metaverse standpoint, really what we do is we help people to enter the space from three different points of the triangle. So there's sort of the architecture and designer side, there's the manufacturer side, and then there's the technology companies as well. And we really work as an adjunct to those teams. We really jump on board and help people to accelerate their pace of innovation by helping them to embed these kinds of practices, the kinds of tools that Nav was describing earlier, into their business to make them as sticky as possible and ensure that it becomes an integrated part of their business, selling and marketing their products, and really maximizing other investments they already have in the space, but adding, of course, the interactivity and 3D tools that are going to solve a lot of different business problems over the coming years.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. And Dennis, would you like to take it off?
Absolutely.
All
Hello,
right.
and thanks for having me, Osher. Dennis from Meta Marketing International. I'm the founder. Just in a nutshell, starting as an investor and someone curious in a lot of these blockchain technologies, and someone who has experience with a startup, fastkids.me, here in Toronto, seeing that link of marketing and seeing how a new industry or something that's very disruptive doesn't always have that link to consumers. They don't always understand how to interact with it. I'm sure all of us in our respective industries have seen a lot of, let's just say, humility around Meta and how Mark Zuckerberg and the Metaverse is seen by the popular public right now. So understanding that there's still all of these innovative links, that we have consumers who are, let's just say, in crypto communities, metaverse communities, AI communities, who are ready for that next wave of technology. The innovators really, I feel, need the help to understand how to connect with the consumer. When we're a very visionary-led environment, we need to have that link to traditional business and how to connect to people, especially when we're bringing the next wave of it and we see the future, getting consumers to the point where they share that vision, understand it, and feel it. And even introducing concepts where it's not like we're going to be in reality versus virtual reality, but this is a complementary service. This is a tool that we can all use. My firm's basically been directly diving into the research, consultation, and a few campaigns related to the next wave of interactive media.
Wow, I love that, Dennis, and I love the point that, you know, we need someone to help us get the feel of what the people need, and not just create innovative technologies without even understanding what's going on around us. So beautiful point, and I already have like lots to say about that, or ask actually today. And Hazel, I know you can hear us. Can you actually talk and present yourself?
Oh, hi. So
Hey,
I'm back.
fantastic.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
So yeah, I guess I only started my metaverse journey, so to speak, in 2020. Actually, when Burning Man went virtual, I'd only just gotten my first headset at the time, and I started creating virtual worlds in Tiltbrush, and they were purely experimental. And then I came across a submission form for the virtual Burning Man. So, you know, I'm always up for a challenge. So I thought I'm going to create virtual environments to upload for the virtual Burning Man, because the brief was for people to create content and virtual spaces that people could portal into from the virtual playa. And so they took me on a tour of the playa to begin with. And I personally have never been to the real life Burning Man, but it just had this really authentic feel to it. You could really feel like you were out in the desert, and there's like sort of dust bunnies rolling by, and there's the art cars and the camps. And then they had these portals placed all around on the playa that you could jump into and visit other people's virtual spaces, other people's content. So that's how it started. And I was creating sort of these narrative driven worlds. And they're more, as you walk around them, they're more like installation pieces, sort of immersive art pieces, and they sort of tell a story in their own right. And I just continue doing that. And so we're now with ReachXR, and ReachXR helps people move their business into the metaverse by helping them strategize around that. And one of the most effective strategies in the metaverse is storytelling. And so we try and lead with that when we're consulting. That's we believe that's the best way to leverage the metaverse, is to tell stories.
Beautiful. Thank you, Hazel. All right, guys. To be honest, it's the first time that I'm not participating but only hosting. So, you know, it's a you know, I should take the opportunity to thank Craig again from the FinTech conference. And, you know, let's dive right into it. And the first question is actually for everyone. Since we don't have a lot of time, we're going to try to try to bound yourself for the first question for at least 60 seconds. and we'll try to run by everyone. So the first question is, what drew you into the metaverse? Again, our topic is how it's going to affect the real life industries. So let's keep that in mind when we're giving the answer to what's drawing us into that virtual reality. Is it actually virtual reality, or is it actually more than that? Who wants to start in? Now?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it, man.
All right. So what drew me into the metaverse was honestly, I've been a video game developer for many years. Since I was 10 years old, I've been programming. And so, the video game space has been really, incredible for me. And so I've already seen what these worlds are. And many of us who've been in the video game industry, we knew that you could actually go into these virtual worlds and kind of have like this second life. And then ironically, Second Life comes up along with World of Warcraft. And growing up, I was like, I'm not touching World of Warcraft because I know if I go in there, I am never coming out. And, there was so much going in around it. And then you would hear some of the horror stories, which didn't even make sense to me. Like, people would kill themselves if their avatar died. Why was there such an attachment? So it started giving me the intrigue in the video game space about these different things and how it became deeper and how it could get really, realistic. And the best part, though, the beautiful things were the relationships. And that's what really helped me to really fall in love with this, was the relationship building, the communities that you can make is huge. And, for a lot of us, I don't know how many people are, extroverts, and it's very easy for them to make friends and shake hands. But for me growing up, it wasn't. And so these virtual worlds gave that opportunity to say hello and to actually be myself and even put on a different avatar if I wanted to. And that was another thing that you could do. So all of these things kind of lured me in. And to give you an idea, with Second Life, over $600 million they still do till today per year. Like, it just keeps on growing. So there's a lot of revenue to be made, and it's very exciting times. And so that kind of is what drew me into the metaverse, if that kind of helps.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Nav. And Huma, what about you?
Yeah, great. So many things that are drawing me into the metaverse. As I mentioned earlier, I started to delve into smart clothing. So, everything IoT is very intriguing to me. And from a designer's perspective, I mean, the metaverse is going to be a huge game changer in sustainability issues. So from that perspective, for a designer, especially a young designer and a startup company, you can really express yourself and create without having to worry too much about incurring a lot of overhead costs, because you can create a digital line first and then pre-sell it and then execute. Whereas currently, or in the past, pre-pandemic, it was like designers would come up with a line, have to cut and sew actual samples, buying fabric. And we would have a lot of waste. So, digital design definitely will help with a lot of sustainability issues. So that's a huge driving force.
All right, beautiful, love that. And Dennis, and let's go from left to right. Dennis, Andrew, and Hazel.
Awesome. I'll jump right off from what Nav was saying. I was one of those people that got sucked into World of Warcraft from about 14, 15 years old, probably for about, I'm trying to measure it in years, but I'm remembering it in expansions instead. So knowing that side of being able to interact with a wide society pretty freely without representing that same person. There was this difference of working with, say, a guild and 40 people to work towards a common objective. And even though it's very gamified and outside of that isolated ecosystem, you don't really see the value. You don't really see the point of what that gives. Just the collectivism and that sort of fandom and that idea of working with a big group in a highly coordinated way. I started to see lots of real world friendships form out of it. And people would go to weddings in Arizona. People would go overseas to Europe and meet their friends that they've been raiding with for a long time. On the professional side of things, just seeing more and more of an interactive media, seeing more and more of these gaps. We've all had that relative who had problems with email, maybe still recently. And just drawing that comparison of, say, a file folder or mail by post office, and really understanding the equivalency, it takes a long time for a lot of people. With a lot of people that have played video games, interface and UI are ingrained. You think of moving forward as pushing your forward key. You don't think of taking the step. So for me, it was getting drawn into how people sometimes are very easily moved into these new UI and interface options, how some people have a lot of difficulty. And again, where's the additive help to what it can do for us as a tool, instead of the adding a layer where it becomes another obstacle in customer service or anything else.
Super interesting. I just gotta, I think now is a good time to mention that I know one real life couple that got married knowing each other through World of Warcraft. So these things actually happened. The lady is an Israeli and the guy is British. So yeah, and they met online. And yeah, also through my high school years, I can say that I facilitated a lot of friendships through Blizzard Entertainment and StarCraft and the gaming experience. So amen to that. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, mine's pretty different actually. My professional career had started really at the very earliest parts of the transition into Web 2. And so as I was coming up and getting my footing in my career, I got a lot of opportunities to really help onboard people to platforms like Twitter and Facebook and things like that. And I really developed a passion for helping brands and businesses with innovation and helping them with really understanding digital tools and how they could be used for their business. And so flash forward and, really starting to see the metaverse turn into something formidable that could be applied in so many different ways, has the kind of flexibility, has the number of distinct kind of platforms out there that you can use in so many different ways for so many different purposes. And then at the same time, working with my partner who has been in the architecture and design industry for more than a decade, we really just saw a sweet spot there to come in, and thought it would just be so exciting to not only be able to continue some of that innovation work and learn and grow with a new area of opportunity, but also and Osher, this, like what more exciting place is there to be when you're designing new worlds than with architects and designers? So really was excited to get the opportunity, to work with them. And I think in the early days, it's a lot like Huma's story of just the opportunities that are created in the design process by having a really reliable and lifelike virtual proxy for the real world. It opens so many doors. So just been excited to be on the early steps of this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we still have Hazel to finish the loop, but it already leads me to the next question. So I'll just put it out there right now. We should talk about the digital twin and how it's going to affect businesses, but let's run by it after we hear what drew Hazel into the industry.
I have to sort of second what everyone was saying about community, and the community aspect really sort of drives home how important that is. With the sunsetting of Altspace VR, that was a really poignant moment in, I guess, metaverse history. I hadn't realized how attached I'd gotten to that platform, because that's where I'd been uploading all of my content, met so many people, made memories, become part of a community. And the farewell from that, and it was just last week, was very sad. It was the end of an era. I can really say that. But the community that was built up on Altspace, that will live on. That will find another platform, another space, and we can rebuild from there. We can rebuild, and our platforms and our communities anew. And I think that's really the power of the metaverse. And people are saying, they knew people who got married online, and I think people got married in Altspace as well. They met on Altspace, became real life friends, partners, colleagues, and it has a real connective power. And I realized that when I started interacting with these communities and creating for the metaverse.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. You know, I gotta mention, Huma came to me, I think about a couple of months ago, and said like, Osher, what about your plot of land on this central land? Maybe we should build there a wedding hall, because a lot of people can't get together, you know, from across continents and countries. And she said, let's just design something and, you know, give that service. And I was like, what? Like, apparently, yeah. Awesome, fantastic. Guys, so what do you think the main impact of having the ability to facilitate a digital twin to any business? And it can be, you know, Nike with their non-fungible tokens that, you know, you measure your shoe on your avatar, and then it's the real shoe, the real piece is shipped to, you know, your real self, because your avatar is 3D modeled in your own dimensions. Or, you know, what Gucci is doing now with, let's say, you know, measuring shirts. I know that a lot of brands are working on virtual shopping malls. Like, retail is a huge piece of the industry. But, you know, I'm definitely, as Andrew mentioned, I'm coming to it from the perspective of an architect, and I'm having a blast just designing, you know, whatever. But what are your thoughts? How is this new technology of super connectivity, let's call it like that way, is going to affect real life industries with a digital twin? Now, you want to take it on?
Yeah, so I was actually investigating this part here, and you know, a lot of people think that the metaverse is just this virtual world. So, and to clarify a bit more on what I've come to learn, you know, the virtual world is without the blockchain side, right? When you don't have the blockchain side, it's just a virtual world. When you add the blockchain side, and that's when it becomes, or at least what we're believing is the metaverse, where you now have ownership as well, where you can own that data and take it to those next levels. So this is what excites me. But it's not just the 3D space. When you start adding in IoT, when you add in the digital twins, imagine now, and I'm just going to, you know, think about this, fast forward a couple of years, maybe 5-6 years from now, or even 20 years from now, you've got an entire replica of New York City, Manhattan. Yep. Your watch has a special IoT device that takes your virtual double inside of the virtual world. As you're walking down the streets of the physical New York, your virtual double could also be walking down there, and people can actually start seeing you and interacting with you. That can add to additional elements of, you know, experiences that we've not even seen yet, right? So this is the sort of idea where now, imagine today we're doing Google Maps, but, you know, what would happen if you could now actually track all the places you walked simply by clicking a button, and now you see all the different places that you've been going. Today we've got what we call screen time. I'm just going to give you a use case, one of millions of possibilities. We use screen time on our computers to say how long you've been on Facebook and all these other websites and so on. What about how long you walked, where you walked to, when you walked, and you could actually get all that data shown in front of you. I think the digital twins are going to give us a new set of opportunities to see data in ways we've not seen before, how we're interacting with our cities, and what we can do to help reduce carbon emissions, to help reduce waste and other forms of, you know, challenges that we're experiencing today, help in conservation of energy and so on. So I think there's a lot of opportunities where the digital twin can come in from a city point of view. From a company point of view now, a digital twin can help out in longevity. So perfect example is our world keeps changing. But let's say Nike had a beautiful building that now 20 years later is no longer the same. Well, guess what? Perfect example happened where I grew up, you know, part of my life in Mississauga. Their central library I grew up with, I never forgot that place. They're now shifting it around. I saw a sign the other day, it broke my heart. They're going to just kind of demolish it and put something else up, or they're reconstructing it. All my memories are gone. But now imagine your memories didn't have to fade away, and you can now have a digital twin that reminds you of where you were. And imagine you coming in with your, you know, children or your grandchildren and saying, hey, I grew up over here. Let's go for a walk where I grew up at the time and place where I grew up. That is now a different way of looking at things. And people are already testing this with memories where you take your video recording. And I saw this the other day where now people can now use that 3D digital twin and actually project a video of where you were sitting in the physical space. You could see where you were holding your son or your daughter and they were growing up on that couch over there on the side. You know, it's going to be incredible, these digital twins and how they're going to affect all our lives. But I'll stop there because I could go on and on about this. It is exciting times ahead for sure.
Super. Look, you know, it's mind blowing even to just conceptualize about it. I know that the Vancouver airport has already started working on replicating their airport just for monitoring purposes. You know, so now they have via Unity a digital twin, and they can know at each second, at each moment, how many people they have in a different gate. This is like mind blowing.
They already actually have that in the Hong Kong airport. They use it to rebalance for when planes need to come to different gates and what gate to send planes to and things like that.
Wow.
Now, as an example, we actually we have a podcast for the architecture and design industry on Web3. It's called Barriers to Entry. Quick plug. But in any case, on our podcast, we recently had a guest. This will premiere this episode probably in mid to late April with the CEO of a company called Lighting Environments. They were an IoT company before they got into Metaverse, and now they have a fully operational digital twin that their workplace uses every single day as a part of their work. And a lot of the stuff Nav was talking about, they actually have operationalized. Every employee has an app where they can see what the carbon offset is if they go into work versus if they don't. Like they have all of these different sensors that are IoT based things all around the office that are plugging into what's the physical world like. And it has things like book your room and whatnot, but they're actually seamlessly working between the two worlds already and gaining a lot of data. And now they're starting to push those out to some of their employees. So, and then a few days after that, not on the podcast yet, but talked to a company called View City, which has rebuilt about 15 different cities from the ground up in VR in England. And they're now working with government partners as well as developers to really understand the impact of putting new buildings in spaces and what that means to the ecosystem around them. So, you know, there's an absolute ton of potential for where this is going that's already being realized. The contrarian point that I'll bring up that I think is even more interesting potentially is I'll call them digital partners, but not digital twins, where when you think about if in an office place, what are the spaces that will be more valuable to me in a virtual setting? And what are the spaces that will be more valuable to me in a physical setting? And how do I think about creating experiences for my employees that allow optimized virtual and optimized physical, not necessarily twinned, but paired together into one complete, fully hybrid office? So just a lot of power there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Huma, Dennis?
Awesome. Thanks. So I'm going to speak from the fashion perspective. And so digital twins, we're seeing that more and more being used in the fashion industry. And as we live more in virtual worlds, our virtual clothing will be much more important. And a result of that is that we will probably consume less physical clothing, which will in the end help us with sustainability challenges. So we will, you know, ideally and I agree with Andrew, it's like we're entering the space of it's a hybrid model that we're going to be living in. Our world will be mixed reality, and both will be used to enhance the experience of the user. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. The digital twins have great value, and since this is a finance community that we're speaking to, I just want to highlight that for fashion, creating digital twins of every physical garment that's created it changes the business model, and we have a new revenue stream as well. So it's not only is it exciting just on an experiential level, but we will be able to monetize this as well.
Beautiful. I remember you brought up the idea, I think in one of our previous panels about a gown that can actually monitor, you know, can show on the virtual world your actual status, your heartbeat, your heart rate, your blood pressure, you know, and you know, if we're taking this from fashion and even into kind of a physician mode, like for doctors to monitor patients, or you know, I mean, that's a brilliant and groundbreaking idea that I love, and I think you should still do it. You should still work on that.
Working on it, working on it. Lots of Health Canada and FDA approvals required, but yeah, it will happen.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dennis.
Thank you. Going to go off that last point from Huma, because I've had a few clients already looking at digital twin clothing and ways of basically giving people trophies, things of status, things of how they can wear their persona in multiple environments. And through the pandemic, and even now, many of us have been on Zoom meetings where the interface is flat. It's literally a flat screen interface. Certain aspects like the shoes you would choose to wear, or for some people in meetings, whether or not you have pants on. These were things that I think to a degree, people were a lot less expressive and a lot more showing up for the work they had to do. But as we're looking at a lot of ways that we really strive for connectivity and relations with people, things like wearing sports jerseys, there's tons of money to be made in those types of franchising opportunities. Beyond that, like Nav was saying, supply chain, that's where I see big logistical improvements. And it's all how we combine these technologies too. If we can have that Nike factory with a digital twin to know exactly when there's production halts or supply chain issues, and the whole chain knows it, making those alternate arrangements becomes so much easier. When you're talking about the shipping routes, and even like as we get into automated vehicle delivery, having those intersections with digital twins to know what's happening rather than a live surveillance feed makes a lot more sense in terms of relay. So I think that there's a whole lot of ways in personal expression, how we see each other, that the digital twin really adds a lot of ways that we can move between reality and virtual reality. And then supply chain and other logistical improvements are going to be greatly benefited from it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hazel.
Yeah, so on a slightly contrarian point, I've been really exploring the idea of decoupling form from function. So in the metaverse, an item doesn't have to function as it does in the real world because we're not constrained by physics, logistics, material costs, things like that. And I think we really need to consider this aspect when we're creating things for the metaverse, when we're building the metaverse, because it doesn't have to resemble the real world, unless, of course, it's used for training purposes, you know, in the medical field and so on, or in the automotive and or aerospace fields. And I think we haven't quite made that creative leap yet. And I think for now, it's probably important to keep it sort of on par with the physical world that we're used to, because I think if we get too crazy with designs, it could have an off-putting effect for onboarding new people because it doesn't seem familiar. So people are more willing to engage with something that seems familiar to them. So I think for now, it's probably important to keep it sort of on par with what people are used to. But then I think we need to sort of decouple our form from our function, because it doesn't need to have the same functionality that it does in the real world. And I think we can create some really inspired things if we take that into account. We can really create things that would never be possible in the real world. You know, whether that's architecture or fashion, you know, digital spaces. And I think, you know, 5-10 years down the road, I think we'll be very used to seeing some absolutely insanely imaginative use cases for the metaverse.
I love that concept because, you know, I think it was around the modernism era that I think it was Mies van der Rohe, one of the greatest architects leading the zeitgeist at the time. And he said, form follows function. And here you come more than 100 years later and you say, nope, we don't need the form to follow function.
We don't need the function part of the form anymore. It can just be form. Yeah. You know, if something's just form, it can be whatever you want it to be. And if it becomes just form, it then it's then transformed into a work of art because art is form.
Love it.
I mean,
I've talked to some product designers who are following the same thread that you're following, Hazel, who are saying one of the exciting things about the metaverse for them, in simple terms, is I've designed chairs my whole life. What is designing an unchair? What do people need in a space where their legs don't get tired, so they don't need to sit? But then how are you going to make the room beautiful and show people where to convene and help them understand their relation to one another without, and you said this in your upfront, the artifacts of the physical world that we're used to that make us comfortable. So I think there's going to be a really academic design process as much as a creative design process around how that evolves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, okay, I guess it turned into a question of itself. Anyone else wants to take on this point that form doesn't have to follow function? I'll respond in like a few seconds. Say that we've had that experience with a golf course turning anti-gravity, because on the metaverse of spatial, the avatar, if you click on it on an object, it will just go vertically, right? So you can actually design, or if you're using Unreal or Charmy or Unity, you can even program the physics the way you want it, So for instance, we're now designing a concert hall for a British company, and I'm thinking, wait, why do we need the chairs here? I can have 5,000 avatars, hanging from the ceiling, looking at the stage, and the stage doesn't have to be in the bottom, it can be in the middle of the stadium. So I totally agree with you guys, and we can facilitate way more people than avatars, let's say, and through that people than a real life concert where gravity, it's a bit. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, to that point as well, you can place, as you said, real life artifacts and put them in a completely different context now, and they take on a wholly different meaning. And when I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking about Marcel Duchamp's urinal. It was just an everyday item that you find everywhere. And it became something else when he turned it into an art piece. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. Sort of taking something out of its original context and placing it in a new context, thereby giving it a whole new meaning.
I'm watching that image, I just Googled it. I totally remember it from my days in the academy, in the School of Architecture, but I'm seeing it now, but my brain is going to the image of Elon Musk entering the Twitter headquarters with the sink, and I'm thinking, did he try to pull the same trick as Marcel Duchamp?
Oh, maybe. It's onto something.
Beautiful. Guys, another question for you. We are about 15 minutes from the end. So how do you think that brands and businesses should be utilizing the metaverse? What consideration should be taken into account? And what do we need to rethink about businesses' marketing plans? There should be a change? Dennis, I think this one is especially for you. Maybe Andrew, you as well. Anyone want
Definitely.
to start? Yeah,
Would love to jump in.
go for it.
Biggest consideration I tell brands all the time is it needs to serve something. Looking to add purposes and looking to add things most consumers see as additional hoops they have to jump through. So finding the ways in which it actually serves a purpose. There's going to be some industries in which, truth be told, it's not as relevant to pursue a virtual presence. There's going to be a lot more, though, on the other side, and what I think about are calls to action and engagement. Not Facebook flat engagement where it's likes or follows or something that someone can do very passively or bot, and it doesn't really give you a lot of information about your business. But as Nav and I have talked about, how do you measure, for instance, someone's time in metaverse and virtual environments? How do you measure those types of consumer habits and how they're actually pertaining to your business? If it's showing these supply line differences and it's showing a cost improvement, then you've got the data that says this is something to pursue. If you don't have that data and you don't have a need that's being fit, then it is important to be contrarian and say, is the technology adding something other than an operational expense?
I would have
like
started
go ahead,
pretty much. I was going to say, I would have said almost exactly what you said off the top there, Dennis, and agree that it's like, why? And I'll just give a couple specific to our industry type examples of exactly what Dennis was just talking about, where we work with some platforms and partners where salespeople are going into a metaverse with a customer who is going to be specifying the design of a room, and the tools that have been custom built into this particular instance will allow them to have every single item and object that they look at be tracked, have every single customization that they make to every product be tracked, to have everything that they like or favorite in the non-Facebook context of that be tracked, and at the end actually produce not only a customer-facing recap of what their visit was and the things that they looked at and what the cost of those things are, and allow them to turn that into commerce really, really quickly. But also there's further back-end data that's associated with that shows how people are moving through those spaces and the things where their gazes are spending their time. And even if they're on a facilitated tour, what were some of the things that they looked at that were off the tour? So there's just all sorts of new layers of information in any kind of a purpose-built activation like that. Another quick one that I'll give is a situation where you have either a small showroom or a presence at a trade show or something like that, where you might have 100 SKUs back at your factory, but you only have space to display 12 of them. You can actually give people access in a physical digital sort of hybrid experience to a much wider array of product. You can say, hey, I love that couch, but do you have it in a love seat? Here, let me show you. Let's look at it. Let's flip it around. Let's look at all the different finishes that it can have. Those sorts of sales opportunities just weren't possible with the constraints of the physical world before. And so that's a couple of examples of where Metaverse has sort of extreme utility to a particular industry that follow along exactly the kind of entree that we're giving to people, is saying, here are some of the whys. What are some of the business problems that you have? This is a technology that can solve for a lot of different instances where you may have a pain point or a constraint.
From my end, I'm going to now say that if you're a brand, there's going to be several different layers. I'd actually say look at each one of the different technologies that are coming in the metaverse space as if you were looking at social media like Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and so on. Each one has a different strategy. For example, with the metaverse space as the virtual world, that's going to use traditional models. I'd say go back to the 1900s, the early 1900s, when it was like, hey, let's go back to like the guerrilla sort of marketing where you got an actual billboard, a physical billboard, or someone actually handing out virtual newspapers like, here's the ad of the day. That's like the old school in the virtual. Then you start adding in the blockchain. That's a separate area. And people are looking at NFTs and using the video game model where you can actually now, as to Hazel's point in the earlier conversation, maybe you hide it in a cloud and people are now going around and they're searching for this and they get a special rare item. That's another form of marketing. Then you go into other platforms like VR. That in itself is a different set of strategy and models and how people are going to move in a virtual world all the way up to the IoT, where now you've got physical devices. That's a different marketing play. Even augmented reality is a different marketing play. So each one of these different technologies, they're all interconnected into the metaverse, but each one is going to have a different strategy. Just like we know today, after many years, Twitter is great for live information versus Facebook may be a different model, and Twitch and so on are different models for different things. So it's going to become like that, in my opinion, where each one of these technological portions of the metaverse have a different marketing strategy and a different strength to them, and will be used very differently, in my opinion.
Interesting.
I'm just going to jump in there. That's great points, Nav. But I also feel like, for brands to enter Web3, we're going to be able to create a seamless customer experience where, with the omnichannel, by a brand creating an omnichannel and ensuring that all their digital touch points are seamless, cohesive, it's going to result in a better customer experience. And the greater the customer experience results in more loyalty, and you'll be able to increase your customer base with Web3 as well. So brands will be able to have more global communities to engage with. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there as well, because everyone's made great points.
Love that. Love that. Okay, guys, I think we have time for one more question for everyone, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up. I just want to say, in case anyone is dropping off soon, that I'm having a great time, and thank you all for joining on this. So last question is, this is an interesting and a tricky one. How does identity translate between metaverse and virtual environment in real life? You know, and we can take this question in consideration with blockchain, which is completely transparent, right? We can follow anybody's wallet and know exactly what they're consuming, how much Ethereum or Bitcoin they have there, or whatever, or Dogecoin, or whatever it is they have, and what kind, you know, and what kind of NFTs they have there. And yeah, okay, I can elaborate on this, but I'll let you guys take it. So how does virtual identity, the real identity translates into the virtual identity?
I'll start with that one. So I was actually speaking to I was speaking with someone about this just the other day.
Yeah.
In the video game world, we've noticed that a lot of people come in because of the fact that they can be somebody else.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, what I've been noticing now is I've been in the metaverse space like for a while now. There's various levels of your avatar that will start coming out, where you've got the avatar, which is like, this is me the way I'd like to be. And then this is me in the professional setting. Like, I'm going to go on a Zoom call. I got to look more like who I am in the physical type of reality, versus if I'm going out just for having fun, maybe I want to be a completely different person, right? Maybe I'll have purple skin and, you know, tangerine hair, who knows, right? Blue hair. So this is the sort of thing, and it's going to become very interesting. Maybe, you know, people will have different body types. It can be a robot, it could be a little chicken. I saw this beautiful image where every one of those were avatars, from a big giant all the way down to tiny little chickadee. You know, it was like, and they're all able to move around, and each one has a different vantage point as well. And so that identity will change how you even view the world, right? So it's going to be really exciting, in my opinion, how that's going to be played out, and how people will own those experiences as well, with that actual wallet and the blockchain side as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Who wants to jump in? Dennis?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
So this is the part where I get to pretend that playing Fortnite is market research. Things like the skins and the dances are such a good they're such a good indicator for the lengths people go to for types of expression. And in a lot of ways, a dance that might be very popular, being a part of that movement. We've seen it through TikTok and social media. We've seen it before that in dance movements that would happen culturally everywhere. So to be a part of that, and then to do it in another cultural icon, like being Thanos or Spider-Man, or how they market musicians as characters that you can play as. It really creates this sense of icons, identities that move between worlds, but also how we can play different identities. The best comparable I have is Halloween. Lots of us have those Halloween experiences or similar experiences where there's a dress-up party, there is a masquerade, there is some reason why we wear a different identity. And there can be a vicarious enjoyment in that. There can be a sense of escapism. There can be a sense of building on an identity that you haven't really touched on before. In a lot of ways, it is also something to be concerned about, as to how are we psychologically protecting ourselves from a very, very easily changing idea of identity? How do we stay rooted in things that don't let us get pulled into what we need? The sort of excessive side, I think, of things like fame and celebrity, where people begin to become icons for the sake of being icons. This would be, I would say, the furthest opposite from Hazel's earlier point. If there is purely a pursuit of form and identity and what you look like, how you act and the characteristics of, let's say, virtue could be things that you hide behind those things. So how people will still be nice and relatable, it could change, but I mean, it's just something to consider, I think.
Powerful. My mind is thrilling with ideas right now, you know, about the self and identity and what is the real self, how to find the real self. If you're only building an image, it's a problem. But for the Freud session, we'll reconvene tonight. Hazel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, the way I interpret this question is to put identity onto two different layers. So I guess there's our expressed or arbitrary identity, which is what you were talking about, Dennis. And there's our immutable identity, which is made up of things like movement data and other biometrics. And that follows us around no matter how we choose to express ourselves, no matter what our avatar is. Whether it's a hot dog or whether it's, you know, a digital twin of our actual bodies. And I think we also need to be taking that identity into consideration when we're interacting in the metaverse, because apparently your movement data is actually more accurate than your fingerprint. And we are leaving a digital trail everywhere we go. And our hardware is recording it. And, you know, apps, you know, the platforms we use also have the option to take that data and do as they wish with it, whether it's to sell it, whether it's to use it to market and sell to you. So I guess my sort of thought is to ask, like, how can we protect that data? How can we protect ourselves? And how do we as consumers demand that? Because all of this data is so accurate and it follows all of your digital movements. And now, you know, it's not just, you know, not just a 2D, you know, person, like profile picture. Everything we do is captured in 3D space. And it's so accurate and representative of who we are as people. And yeah, we just need to be very mindful of that and try and protect it.
I'm glad you got there. I think that the agency and ownership over your data is obviously one of the core tenets of Web3. The head of Web3 for Salesforce somewhat famously said a few weeks back that he sees the wallet as the new cookie. So when businesses and brands are looking to interact with people, that wallet is going to be so important. But the points that you made, Hazel, the idea with it is that I control what goes in my wallet. And while all that data is available, I should have some agency over what's actually made available. And if I want to make that available, I should be compensated for it. So I think that there's going to be a new value exchange there, but I think that the tools to enable it are going to be stronger than ever once we get it right.
I'm actually wondering if there is some kind of zero knowledge layer we can implement on maybe the hardware level, so that any data that we give off, whether it's our movement data, our eye tracking data, our micro expressions, that it's then sort of put through some kind of filter, so it's no longer tied to you as an individual.
I know at least a couple of companies working on it. One is based here in Toronto, and they actually they had a crowd. You know, they did a public speaking showing off their tech a few months ago. And a second one is not exactly what you guys mentioned, Andrew and Hazel, but more into it's a company that works on, it's the next level of NFTs, of non-fungible tokens, proving that your asset is actually yours and that it wasn't replicated somewhere in the internet. But I've been shown only the demo and I still didn't get it. So I still have work to do on that. I think someone dropped off. That was okay. So guys, I think we should be actually wrapping it up. If each one of you could just mention how you guys can be reached, at which address, website, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is. And I'd like to thank you all for joining. And once again, thank you, Craig, for this lovely opportunity. And I guess I'll be seeing you very soon again. So now take it away, man.
Sure. Yeah, so if you'd like to reach out to me at Charmy, that's CHAARMI.com. And you can get into the metaverse today. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Dennis?
Dennis Perrin from Meta Marketing. You can drop me an email at info@metamarketing.international, or you can reach out on Twitter at metamarketingi.
Beautiful. Andrew.
Yeah, you can reach me at meetdigby.io, or just email me at andrew@meetdigby.io, or you can look us up on our podcast, wherever you find your podcasts. It's called Barriers to Entry.
Beautiful. Hazel.
You can email me at hazel@reachxr.io, or on Twitter, hazelgriffiths8.
Beautiful. And myself, Osher Frank, you can reach me at metaversearchitects.ca, or on Twitter or Instagram at meta_architect. Guys, thank you so much. It was beautiful, enriching, and enlightening. So let's do it again sometime, eh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Osher. Great job.
Thank you
Cheers.
so
Bye, everyone.
much.